Okay, it's 6 o'clock and time for conversations with Christina. Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Really excited that you're all here to join us tonight. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome those joining us also on Facebook tonight. Really love it when everyone comes together on the webinar platform as well, so that we can really interact with your energy. We can interact with your questions. It's really helpful. We love being responsive to your needs and really weaving through. Conversations with Christina really is about a conversation. While we're allowing for some things to really bubble up and be guided in this conversation. So thank you for joining us. So I want to welcome all of you and give you a few tips about how to use this Zoom platform if you are on the webinar. So at the bottom of your screen, you're going to notice two things. You're going to notice the Q&A button. When you click on that, you can ask a question for us to answer as panelists. You'll also see that you'll have the opportunity to comment on each other's questions as well as upvote. So if somebody asks a really great question and you're like, yes, please answer that question, you're welcome to upvote it so that we can answer it quickly. The other option here is the chat button. And so you notice the chat button is for when you just want to make a comment or you want to share or add something. And so you have the option as a participant on this webinar to either send a message just to the panelists so that only Colette, Susan, and I will see it, or you can send it to all the panelists and all the attendees, and then everyone can see that. Last time we did this, we got a lot of really great content only sent to us and would really love it if you have something important to share to also send it to the other attendees.
And hi, Melanie. I see she left us a note there. Melanie's already responded.
Yes, we've already got a note from Melanie. Great. Good to see you. So I want to introduce myself first. So my name is Christina Bianchini. I am a registered therapist. I also lead workshops and apparently also conversations with Christina now that's been created. The universe has brought that to me. And I'm here in private practice in Prince George, and I have some really wonderful friends that I want to also introduce you to. First person I want to introduce you to tonight is Colette Freeman. So Colette Freeman has a wonderful healing spa and shop here in Prince George, Enjoy. And Colette is so much more than that. She's an angel therapy practitioner. She is divinely inspired. She's the biggest heart and the biggest amount of joy. And I just love my interactions with her. So let's welcome Colette. And Colette, do you want to say a few more things about who you are for everybody here?
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. So those of you who've joined us before know probably a little bit more about all of us. But currently, this is an interesting time because Enjoy's doors are obviously closed. And that's a pretty different vibe for me, vibe for all of us. So this is really exciting to be able to connect with you in this way. I've definitely been taking some time for myself in all sorts of ways. So I just want to also take a moment to say, you may have noticed I haven't been posting on Facebook so much, just because I've been taking some time. So I will be back though. So thank you for joining us, and hi everyone.
Yay. Yeah, so glad you're here, and we look forward to having you back in whatever in all your forms.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I also want to introduce Susan Flueck. So Susan Flueck is a healing practitioner, and that word is just too small really to describe the magnitude of who Susan is. And it's always a joy and a delight to have her on these calls. She works privately with people, and she also has in the process of publishing her first book. So we're really excited to have her on. And maybe Susan, you can talk a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Hi for people. I see some people saying hi in the chat. So hello, we do see all of you. And I want to welcome everybody that's been so guided here to be with us tonight. I so appreciate that, because in this time of with uncertainty, we all have questions. We're all going through different stuff. So really honor you all all to take time for yourselves to do that. Me, I help people to align with their divine truth, if I was going to put it into one sentence. That is my journey. And it starts with me first. So I'm also on the journey to align with my own divine truth in every moment, to step into that. And in that practice, I also, people come to me who are obviously a part of my journey, which I so appreciate. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah. And sometimes it is really hard to encapsulate all of what we do, right? Because I think I think we're all beacons here. We're all beacons here. We're all guided. We're all bring our light to the table so that everyone can be inspired to also find and to continue to nurture and flourish in the light within them. And so while we're all here tonight, sharing some of our best practices and some of our insights, my deepest desire is that each one of you is inspired to navigate this journey for yourself and see what resonates for you. We're here as guides and as inspiration, and each one of us is going to have a very unique journey. And that's why there's 3 of us, because we each have a different perspective. So tonight we'll be weaving the perspectives of, the angels and energy and quantum physics and science and psychotherapy. And there's so many wonderful things that we get to weave in these conversations together. And I hope some of that inspires each of you. So tonight's topic is relationships, mastering the self through the other. So Colette and Susan and I have done a lot of work around self-mastery and in the heart of self-mastery. And this is really what came up after our last call and our last webinar, was how much our relationships right now seem to be forefront. Our relationships with ourselves and also our relationships and interactions with other people. What I'm finding here is that in this stillness, in this pause that we are taking collectively, for me personally, there is a space that has emerged in which my opportunities, I don't want to call it my work, but things that I haven't looked at before are bubbling to the surface. And whether that's in my time on my own, when I all of a sudden have space to just be with me and realizing that I'd rather do anything but stay in a moment of stillness with myself and just really being curious about how I could lean into that moment, or noticing myself being triggered by another person, whether that's somebody I see through social media or somebody that's actually in my circle, like a partner or children or neighbors or any of those things. These are all wonderful opportunities for us. And so while it might not always feel like that, like a wonderful learning opportunity, I believe they are so deep and so rich. And so perhaps, Colette, tonight you could start by just maybe sharing a little bit about what you notice has been bubbling to the surface for you. What's present? What is being called for you to look at, either collectively or individually right now?
Oh, okay. Well, I certainly, just speaking again to not tending to our Enjoy Facebook the way I had been doing at the beginning, because I was finding that I was spending a lot of time contemplating that and preparing for that and channeling that message and bringing it through. And I really needed to take more time just for me. And so what does that mean? For me, that means enough time to just contemplate nothing, or what seems like nothing, but it's never nothing. And just give myself no boundaries, no end time, no limit. And I am privileged to be able to do that. Certainly, I don't have young children running around at this time, and I am on my own. Currently, my husband actually has gone to the lake also. So I'm really having a few days completely to myself. So that is another boundary has been lifted for me to be able to just be present. And so within that, I really see that it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of reading and and absorbing and learning, but at the same time going completely quiet. And in that quiet time, watching my mind just go to all the places. And for relationship, for sure, I'm very aware. I've done a lot of work around relationship for myself, and that will be in my life's work forever and ever. And I do a lot of work with my clients around relationship, because that is really how we grow. That's how we learn about ourselves. And so, as those triggers come up, like you're saying, Christina, and the trigger happens, and I'm very well aware, done a lot of work with Byron Katie's work, and A Course in Miracles and Robert Holden's work. And we see ourselves in that other person, right? And it doesn't mean that we're exactly the same as that, but we have aspects of that. And so taking that opportunity to really ask myself what it is that I need, and really finding my voice to speak that, exactly what I need. And, that's been a life's work for me, because I haven't always done that. And even now, more so as we journey, kind of through this time where I'm really on my own. My husband and I are together, or we're dealing with, just conversations with family who are going through stresses, and to stay centered in my heart, and to really acknowledge and work through the pieces that are triggers for me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've really been peeling back a lot of layers.
I feel like I have.
Yeah.
I really have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been great. It's been amazing. I don't feel like I have a whole lot of answers. I feel like I'm living into this, living through this. Every day feels a little bit different, right? I am choosing, though. I have to say, one thing that's really been powerful for me is, and I think lots of us have talked about it, that the moment when you wake up in the morning and there's that, before your identity wakes up, there's just this little space. And that moment I've been really practicing, as I come into that moment, to wake up and begin my gratitude and my thank you for this day, and guide me through this day, and show me where to be, who to be, how to be, right? And just listing all the things I'm grateful for. And it sets my day. Wow. And I've, when we're really wrapped up in the busyness, and I'm sure lots of people are still working and doing things as well, but sometimes you're woken up by a pet, or you're woken up by a child, or you're something else, and you don't have time for that. Just kind of wait. The moment you get time, do it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. It's a great morning practice. One of the things that you said that I really thought was really important for us to just pause on for a moment is the idea of seeing the self in the other. And that what is showing up in the other is truly a reflection of me. Maybe you can speak first a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to ask Susan her opinion as well. Like, tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean, seeing myself in the other?
Well, we are all one. We're all having the same emotions. We're all in the human field, right? And so I know we were chit-chatting the other day a little bit, and just doing, bless Byron Katie. So anybody who has not tapped into her work, I highly encourage it. One of the things that after doing a lot of her work, what really sits in me, and I just can't avoid, is that when I am irritated or agitated or triggered by something in someone else, that person is just really irritating me right now. And I wish they would stop, and really noticing that you can't just stop on a dime, right? That I'm triggered and agitated. So whatever I can judge in another person, it also happens in me. And maybe not all the time. Like, it doesn't mean, right? You judge, oh, they're really bad people out there, I must be a really bad person. No, but sometimes I've had all those same thoughts, and as an example, a long time ago, when I really had first started to do the work, I had this experience where my children had witnessed something, and they were really upset about it. It was a neighbor across the street who had been unkind I don't think I've shared this story with you guys, have I? Had been unkind to his son.
Mm.
And so they came, I didn't even see it, but they saw it. And he had really been rough with his son and manhandled him into the house. And the girls were telling me the story. And this just, whoa, this feeling came up in me like, how could he do that? How dare he treat his child like that? Like, and this feeling came up. I just wanted to go over there and, you know, take some action here. And so I stopped, and I was very involved in the work at the time. And so I wrote, and that is what the work invites you to do. It invites you to write down your feeling, right? So write down your judgment, right? And question it. And so I did. And the invitation, of course, is to, you know, what could they do different? What advice can you give them? You know, you really just go all out and give it. And so I did that. And what I noticed when I realized I wanted to go over there, this is very, like, I'm admitting this, but I'm telling you, I wanted to go over there and handle him into his house. And I was like, oh my God, that lives in me. That lives in me. Now I didn't, and we can all argue that we wouldn't take that action. But I wanted to, I felt it in my body. I felt that feeling come up. And so after knowing that, and so the moment I felt that, I felt compassion for myself.
Yes.
Like, oh, of course, I'm irritated. I'm angry. That man was irritated and angry. We all get irritated and angry. And so in that moment, I brought compassion for him because I could see it. I identified it. So we get irritated, we get angry. It doesn't mean we're that all the time, but in moments we can be. And that can bring a lot of compassion for ourselves. And next step, clarity. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't take action if I was guided to, but I would take clearer action, not reactive action.
Which is so important, right? I think that's what part of the work and believing in the idea that there is no separation between self and other allows us to do, is to have a moment where we can sit, we can offer compassion, and whatever choice of doing that we're going to do after we sit into the being comes from a very different place.
Yes. I really have experienced that. And it's really lovely to have that sitting, because I'm telling you, like, I can barely open my mouth now. You know, it's as I'm kind of going, oh, I wish they would stop doing that thing, you know, whatever it is. Or it's, you know, maybe it's my husband and I in a conversation, and he's feeling agitated about something. And then I get agitated about him being agitated. I wish he'd stop being agitated in the moment I'm being agitated. And it's funny, but I just get funny because can I stop myself in that moment?
Right. Because you're agitated that he's agitated.
Yeah. Right. And so it just happens really, really quickly. And then I just stop. And I go, that's what we are. That's what we do. And it's okay.
Right. There's a piece around acceptance and just sitting in the what is, right? Not arguing with what's actually happening in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Not arguing with it. And, you know, that's a big piece, right? Even in defense, right? Defense, when we're in a conversation and we feel like we need to give our point, or we need to tell our point of view, or we need to defend our position. You know, Byron Katie talks about that being defense is the first act of war.
Sure.
And I've really experienced that because all the war is going on in here.
There's a resistance, and that war is that resistance. This couldn't possibly be me. This is about them, or like, I'm not going to allow this to be. Wow. Yeah. I can feel that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to have Susan.
That was awesome.
Susan is having some internet delay. So she's going to go, you're going to see her picture just like she switched it now, and she's going to speak just audio. So Susan, do you want to share a little bit about this self and other piece?
Oh, did we lose
her? I can't hear you now, Susan.
Oh, maybe not meant to be on the call.
There you go.
There she is.
There you go.
Just let me know. I'll try my best here. So it's glitching in and out. I'm just trying to, this is all about accepting what is. This is my natural. Let me tell you, I don't usually, like, I want things to go nice and smooth. And when it doesn't, I get angst. But I'm just learning to accept what is. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that.
It sure is.
Yeah, it really is. Just it's all in. I can feel people's energy, so that's that alone. I don't need to see what's going on. Just feel it. And further to the experience of the mirror, and you know, I think I said in the last call that I live by three. So one of them, nobody out there but my reflection. And I realize for me, when I'm observing her and I'm getting agitated, it's either a shadow part of myself that I haven't been able to see, and I observe and recognize it, but that the universe is giving me an opportunity by the mere fact I'm being agitated by the experience.
So I'm just
And
going to
then
pause you there. Can I
yeah.
pause you there just because it cut out a
Sure.
little bit? I was going to say back to you what I think you
Okay.
said. So you said the universe is giving you a gift and an opportunity simply by reflecting back something to you that causes agitation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And so it's an opportunity to look at the shadow aspect of self. That's one experience. Then the other one is where it might be tied to a very deep wound where a need was not met that is being reflected through the other. And there's an aspect of it being a shadow part of us, and then there's the aspect that it's a wound, that it is the inner child seeking some comforting during the process. And often we don't recognize it. What we tend to do is that we will project it outwards with anger or with the aspect of our personality. We shut down, or my case, I can be when I get quite defensive when I'm hurt, and I'll come out fighting, like not physically fighting, but maybe with words, and go in a defense posture. Meanwhile, that was my little girl self that's been wounded and just seeking love in the moment. Yeah.
And when we hit
that's
these
the
wounded,
gift.
when we hit these wounded parts, right, that little girl or that little boy part of us, that part of us that didn't necessarily receive what we needed way back then, or not in the way that we needed it. I find that when I'm agitated in the current moment, and it does link back to one of these wounds, I'm seeking from the other person to do something to quell that need. And sometimes it's an authentic need, and other times it's what I'm doing is I'm only perpetuating the same cycle. Like it's a wounded need, right? Like I need you to somehow be different so I don't feel this. We want the other person to change so that we don't experience those same feelings. And so often the thing that I feel like we ask and need from somebody else is for them to not trigger us. And I mean, I'm not talking about anybody who is actually abusive. Like, that's a completely different topic. And obviously that is not okay. But I'm talking about somebody just purely being who they are. We want that person to change in some way, so we don't have to feel these wounded parts of ourselves, and we don't want to look at those wounded parts of ourselves. We would rather have someone else just be somehow different so they no longer tread upon that. And then there's absolutely zero opportunity for growth if the other person is always being required to shift and change somehow to prevent me from feeling my wounded parts. What are your thoughts about that, Susan?
Absolutely. Busy projecting onto the other, we never go within. And that's where the magic is. When I say magic, I'm not talking the MAGIC magic, because that's the illusion. I'm talking the MAJIK magic, which is the alchemy of changing lead into gold. And the lead within ourselves is the personality, and then the wounds that we maybe even came in from other lives or came in childhood. A lot of my clients, if you imagine the magnificence of someone came and took and vellum or cling wrap right over who you are. And we think we're the cling wrap because it's so close to our body. But really, that's the personality of which we have to live so we can claim who we really are. And it's through the wounded aspects of the little child whose needs were not met that we are going to really come to honor.
So you're cutting out again. So I'm just going to jump in here and say a bit about what you just said. So you're talking about the idea that if we all understood that we come into this plane just in our pure magnificence and pure love and pure light, and that there is almost like you said, like vellum, like something that comes over us, that it becomes our personality of who we are, the conditioned self in some way, the experience of this, and that we become quite attached somehow to that conditioned person. That's our personality, that we identify with that being who we are, and not seeing past the outer, and actually seeing what's inside as our true essence. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And so talk relationship this week, and that's the best part, because the crux of this all is the relationship with self.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to understand self through relationship with other.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever other is our children, which are our biggest. And then we have, our partners. And these are opportunities better. And the one thing I'm learning, and I know I'm going through this right now as that's why we said this call was perfect. To love to come and have relationship with self. And I'm faced with that, and lots of emotions are coming up, and having to face a lot of things I didn't even know. And for God's sakes, I'm 50 years old. I did not know that depth stuff, that if you would have asked me that, are you kidding me? I didn't even know. But as I'm going with it.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff like you're saying right now. And I believe that this call is timely, because I don't think we can be the only three on this planet that are currently experiencing a shift in terms of how much I know I am being called to truly look within right now. And you were referencing, Susan, this place in terms of like our divine essence. And I really believe that for me, the thing that has been helping me the most is really coming back and just sitting in my divine essence, especially when I am triggered. Because my mind is going to make up a lot of stories about what is happening. It's going to make up stories about you. It's going to make up stories about other people. And when I am stewed into that conditioned mind, I cannot find a great solution out of it. Or maybe I can, but I'm usually seeking externally. What I know is that most of my narrative is incorrect anyways. Right? So if you do the work of Byron Katie, that's something that you can do to look at that. And so when I come back into just the awareness, and so for me, that is really the place. So if I come back to my divine essence, that is the awareness of what is happening. So I just watch myself having my feelings. I can watch myself having my thoughts, and I don't attach to them. I sit in the place of divine awareness where love exists. And I just sit there and become absolutely present in that moment. And something shifts within me, because what I know is the only place to transform that which has been unhealed within me is in that divine present moment. It is not going to be healed by whatever mental gymnastics I think I'm going to pull out of my head, even though I would rather do anything to feel that in that moment. This last weekend, I had one of those experiences. Sorry, Susan, just one sec.
That's okay. And
I was seeking everything outside, like what healer, who do I have to call? Like what modality, like what card could I pull? Whatever, what was it? Do I need to I just kept looking for something to do to move through that feeling. And what I realized now on the other side of it was an experience that I was important for me to bear witness to, that it was a bubbling up. And that place, I cannot explain it, because I can't tell you I did these 5 easy steps and suddenly now I feel better. It was because I allowed it. I sat in the acceptance of it. I'm not saying the whole time, because I definitely railed against it at moments. But when I was able to get to that place of, okay, this is what's going on. I don't know what this means. I'm I'm going to be with that, be with this in the most loving way I can be with myself in this moment. And I woke up this morning and something had shifted, and I can't say X happened and then X happened. And that's why this, it's because I allowed it to move through me and transform.
I think that's this. If I was same thing, because I think all of us in the call, we had a call before last week, I think, when we talked about we're all going through our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm recognizing, it is through the feelings. So, I think I said in the last call, we've been so busy being human doings, action oriented, going through the experience. And now we're being called by the universe to go in. If you guys saw my picture, I'm wearing a beautiful butterfly on my shirt. I believe we're in a chrysalis of being transformation into human beings. And part of being is to integrate the emotions. They call it energy for a reason. It's emotion, energy in motion. And the collective, we're moving into a new dimension. We are moving into this fifth dimension of unity and the frequency change. So things no longer serves each of us. These old energies that no longer serve us are being asked to transmute. But guess what? Guess how we transmute them? We transmute them through feeling, being in it with no judgment, good or bad. That's the part I also want to say. We focus on the positive, that we got to stay happy, and then we try to push the unhappy feelings into the unconscious. And we have to feel it all. It is just feeling it and being in the experience of what's happening in the present moment. Because how do you know it's for you? Because it's happening in the present moment.
True story.
It's freaking happening right now. So you know it's for you. And then what do we try? We go try smoke, or we drink, or we overeat. Anything to avoid and to distract ourselves, the experience of what is happening, when all we need to do is just persevere through it and be willing to just be, and then knowing this too shall pass. And then on the other side, which all three clean, other side, light, and you see a lot clearer through the discovery of the dark.
So you started sounding like a bit of an alien. So I'm just going to pause there for a second. Yes, really. You're channeling.
I'm laughing my ass off back here. Sorry, I'm killing myself.
I just want to acknowledge, Susan, that you're really handling this technology race, because I think this is just what it like. I just love that we're doing a call tonight about potential agitations. And then I think each one of us is probably wishing that somehow this technology was different. And I think we could move into acceptance and let that go, and just really be grateful for the graceful presence and energy of it. So thank you. Yeah, not better. Okay, so
I love it.
So I've got that you might get better sound if you call into Zoom number on the phone. So that's something that, Susan, you might want to give that a try. So and we're getting lots of kudos. People are enjoying it, and I think they're in it with us. So thank you guys all for being here with that. One of the things that I want to point out here, I was listening as Susan was saying, like, this is about wholeness. This is not about picking and choosing the good feelings or the not so good feelings, or the good experiences or the not so good experiences. I believe that the wholeness is the totality of experiencing all of it without needing to put a judgment on it. Because the minute I put judgment on it, I am separate from it, and I'm no longer in the experience. I was listening to Eckhart Tolle talk to Oprah yesterday, if anybody saw that piece. And he was talking about the law of order and the idea that both disorder and order are necessary, that we must have both. because there's a balance there, and that none of us really like the part that's disordered or chaotic, and that, you know, it is okay for us to continue to look for the places that are orderly and content and serene, because the other places are going to show up anyways. Like I always say, pursue pleasure, pain will show up anyways. You'll be able to handle it when it does. But the idea here, like the real growth, I'll speak for myself, although I know that we're all one, happens in those moments. Those are the moments when I am most uncomfortable, when there is some chaos, that everything isn't tucked in nice and neat, that I grow the most, that I learn the most. I wouldn't have had the kind of experience I had with sitting in my feelings had those feelings not come up. Because I can read, right? I can read so much. I can learn so much from other people. And it is until I have the experience of it that I actually shift something within, right?
Yeah.
And so I am going to see, Colette, if you want to add something to that, I want to see if I can hook Susan up.
Yeah, sure. Well, what I'd like to add is just I so agree with all of that. And what's really neat, because we're talking about transformation, like, and through the other, right? Mastery through the other. So we can carry on and deny and do, but you're going to get triggered at some point. If there's something there, right? I love what you said. Continue on, you know, following your bliss, your joy, your desires. If there's something to come up, it'll come. You won't avoid it. There will be a person there to mirror it. And, you know, I really have seen for sure that, you know, yes, we have our wounded child, those parts. And what I always love about that is, you know, I can remember first beginning kind of this looking in journey, maybe in the 80s somewhere. And earlier than that, even wondering why all my siblings and I were different when we had the same mom and dad.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know we've laughed over the years. It's like, do you remember when this happened? And the other one's like, no, that never happened. You're like, yeah, it did, you know? And, you know, well, mom said this and I can remember it. And they're like, I don't remember that ever. And it's like each person has their own perfect little perspective and their own perfect experience. And, you know, all the things that were for me were for me. And if whatever I have not healed from there, whatever is, you know, still going on, if there's anything still bubbling, it'll show up in somebody else. And that's the wonderful, wonderful thing to know.
Yes.
Is that and when something's showing up in someone else, it's like, oh, yeah, where have I felt this before? Where has this been happened before? And I don't know if any of you know Kyle Cease or followed any of his stuff. He's a comedian turned transformational teacher. And he just does this wonderful exercise where, you know, you take whatever that person is, you know, bringing you, that agitation, that irritation, that judgment, that they're really pissing you off about something, and feel the feeling you're feeling with it, and then just remove them from the, like, just remove them, pretend they're not even there anymore. And it's just you sitting with the irritation, you sitting with the feeling. Where have you felt that before? Have you ever felt that feeling before? Right? And that's a really lovely way to kind of sneak into the wound, because right away you'll be like, oh yeah, I can remember. I remember feeling like that. You know, I just see my mom there, my dad there, my uncle there, whatever, you know, for whatever person. So that's a really powerful exercise to do, is just to know that person in front of you is just giving you an opportunity. They're really just bringing up something that was already there. It's mirrored out there. They're the angel.
It's true.
That is showing up for you to mirror back this beautiful place where you could have more compassion for yourself, more love for yourself, maybe take some time to love that little person that's there, that's having that feeling, that doesn't feel worthy or not good enough or not valuable or not worthy of time or someone to take care of them, whatever it is that's coming I encourage you to, again, write it down. Is super, super helpful, right? Whatever those feelings are. And just know that, we're looking, we mentioned that on the last call, when I had that moment on the bathroom floor, right? Asking like, could God come and help me? And realizing that, he asked me, well, could I, can I do it?
Wow.
Right? Can I help me? Could
Right.
I be the one that shows up with love? I'm waiting and waiting for people to love me. I can remember that for years.
Right.
Could people just love me more? Could you should love me better. But I never thought I was supposed to do it. That in my, that seemed kind of somehow selfish in my perspective.
But what does that mean though? What does that mean to love yourself in that moment? Like what does that actually mean?
For me, it is just to come and be present with that feeling, just to go, okay, so because I'll tell you, when I have a friend in front of me or a child in front of me, or when I can really be present with another person, I'm just called to be a witness, to be a witness and to be present and to say, I'm here. It's okay. I'm glad you told me. It's okay. Right? Do I do that for me? Had I done that for me? No, I do that for me now. Maybe not immediately. I gotta have a raging judge for a little bit. And then wait a minute, hold on, because that is not going to get better that way. I need to take some time to be present for me and to show up. And it is proven. It is just so proven. The more I love and honor myself, the more the world reflects it.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
So true, right?
Yeah.
And I like what you said. Like, it's about that witness. It's about that container that you would so love to offer to somebody else, and offering that to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are times for myself where it is, and in that loving, like for my brain to work that way, it is important sometimes for me to see another aspect of self, like to see myself as the mother and the child, like to really hold that container, or to call in the divine container. Sometimes that's important just for me to get it conceptually in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And for myself, my spiritual journey, which was, I was raised Catholic with a very strong religious background, a very devoted Catholic mother and grandmother. And, all of the framework that goes with that. And for those of you who know something about it, the rules and the dogma that comes along with it. And lots of it, there's some good pieces there. There really is. But I rallied against that big time, because it left me with a feeling that the creator was a huge judge. And I didn't truly understand that was not the truth, right? Until I had this experience where I was introduced to the angelic realm. And for me, that I just saw no judgment there. I was completely loved and accepted. And that blew my mind. That opened me like in such an amazing way, and still does every day. I just know, they are messengers of the divine, and we are the divine, right? So we have this human experience, and we have our soul experience, which is essentially, the one who's kind of coming to do the experience and the learning and has the knowledge. And then we have the spirit experience, right? The source within us, the creator that is within us, that we can tune into. So, I often say, angels help, as if, they're somewhere up in the sky.
They're somewhere separate from you.
Right? Yeah, somewhere separate. And they're not. That is not true. It just it always comes off that way. I think just what I've learned. But they're here, right? They're here. And so as I take that, like, those are the pieces that I will go to when I'm choosing my reading to help myself to come back to alignment. I will choose the reading that I know is going to love me. Right? So that I can move into that vibration and learn to love myself. And I have some really, those key pieces are when I'm working with, there's this beautiful little book called Daily. They don't even make it anymore, right? It was Adoring Virtue book. It was Daily Guidance from Your Angels, and it was 365. And it's a hardcover book or a soft cover book. So many of you might have it. And I keep it in my bathroom. And that's where I do a profound pick. And I mean, it's just so full of love. And then the other, I always share with you ladies about lovability, right? Like it is knowing how to love and be loved. This is and you can tell the places that I read it.
Yep.
This is when I read it in my bed, and this is when I read it in my office. And the toilet paper ones are when I read it in the bathroom.
Perfect. I love that. I love that.
So tip to everyone, keep a good book in the bathroom.
Yes. I agree. That's a really good spot. I mean, I also know that I get lots of inspiration in there because there's just a moment of stillness. Like there is that moment of stillness, which I enjoy. So it looks like, Susan, are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. We're excited. So
yay. Oh my boy, oh boy. Everybody on the call, guess what? If those that know me, I'll just let you know the universe has given me an amazing opportunity to practice patience, which is not, I've called that in. I've asked the universe for patience. And I want to be a patient person. So this has really given me lots of opportunity to practice. So thank you, universe.
Yeah, thank you, universe.
And thank you, Jessica.
Yes.
Add that to the chat. Thank you for your suggestion about the phone. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
So Susan, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I kind of was distracted. Sorry, you guys were talking and I was off in a little bubble there, so I probably didn't get a lot of the information that was presented there, but I'll just jump in with what I'm sensing. It really is in terms of taking the opportunities. I love the name of the book you have there. I saw that on the screen, The Lovability.
Lovability, right?
Yeah, and it is about starting lovability with self. I keep going back there, and one of Christina and I had a call just before this, and we were saying, okay, what are the key talking points that we wanted to touch upon? And the one that the guides kept telling me is it is about self-love. Self-love. And then with self-love, then you extend it to other. Even in my example here, asking for patience. Well, guess what? The universe is going to give me opportunities to practice. And it's the same with love and how we extend what we extend to another, we accept in self. So, and I'm going to use patience as the example, which as we're all seeing me go through on this call. So when I'm extending and externally, then I'm accepting it in self. So when I extend gentle compassion to another, and someone, for example, with Colette's example, she gave the man that rough handled his son into the house. Even when she was telling this story, I mean, there was a time when Alexander was 7 years old and I manhandled him. And so when I see that now, it's to hold that with gentle compassion, because there was a time I was there. And not knowing any better, that's the thing. And I could either stand there and hold it in judgment to another when I see them exhibiting in a way that I may have evolved past. But rather than being in the judgment that I'm now better than or worse than, because we go into judgment in those moments, just to hold gentle compassion. And especially for self, because there's no freaking way that we can be our best selves all the time. We have our shadow aspects. That's a part of being human. We have if you just look at life as polarity, and the pluses and the minuses, we have our positive points and we have our negative, just in terms of polarity. And I don't want to put any judgment on either experience. It is just experience to know thyself. And then when we can just be in the experience and say, oh, I noticed I'm really angry right now, and just to allow that to process through, that's the act of self-love, in my opinion. It's accepting what is. You guys talked about that, and even on the call. And we know it's for us in the moment because that's what's freaking happening. In that moment, it's the highest evolution for the experience in that moment that's playing out.
And then rather than judging it and saying I shoulda, woulda, coulda, because I tell my clients that shoulda is, stop shitting all over yourself because it's intended exactly what it sounds like. We're arguing with reality, or when we say sorry all the time, we're arguing with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And self-love means you just accept yourself all in,
Yeah.
in your best moments and your worst moments.
Mm-hmm.
So lovability, that's the perfect, what you showed the screen,
Mm-hmm.
perfect, because it is, it's lovability, starting with self.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something, Colette?
Yeah, I was just thinking that it is so true, right? It's our ability to what is our ability? What level can we be at that love and acceptance? But what you had said, and I just think that is a powerful question to ask all the time,
Mm-hmm.
is how is this for me? And we've all talked about that in several ways, but every single time, including this virus situation, including whatever might be happening in our businesses or our jobs or our families, it is really lovely to sit in the how is this working for me? How is this work? Not just how is this for me, but how is this actually working for me? How is this a gift? That changes the game. I think that when we ask the right question, we get a different answer, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when I remember going through a lot of work on myself, back in the 80s, and I got pretty serious. I'm a very light, a lot of laughter in my life, and I got so serious. Like everything was just like I had to work it out. I had to learn, and I was trying to figure out relationships, and I didn't know that I would ever be like really happy again, right? And I think even for a lot of us who are conscious and we are, we're doing our good work, we can get so serious about, doing all the right work. And I think, we have to lighten up on ourselves, like be kind to ourselves. It's not really, we're here for a little bit of time and we're going to do our work. It will not miss us. It won't. There'll be another person, right? If you bypass that one, you don't want to deal with that issue, there'll be another opportunity. But be light and be kind, and it can get serious sometimes, and we need to be lifted, right? Lifted.
And yeah, what you said there, really important, I think, is if not you, then who? Then who, right? If we're not kind for ourselves, if we don't take it upon ourselves, who in the frick is going to do it for us?
Very good.
We have to be our own biggest advocate and to claim sovereignty over self. Sovereignty means to have power and authority over self. And that includes how we love ourselves and how we show up. Exactly. So how really self.
So I don't know how you've managed to also, your phone line got garbled. So I find this is just like the most wonderful opportunity for us. Like I always know that when I'm working towards creating something, that the opportunity to experience it and live it shows up, and it definitely is. And Colette, further to what you were saying, there's this piece around when I'm in the middle of something, if I ask, why is this happening? I am in the middle of, I don't own it. It's outside of me. Something, he, she, or it is doing it to me. Like there's a removal of it. And then I end up in victim when I go to the why, right? Like I'm railing against the why. And when I can actually own the experience, like Susan said, I know it's for me because it's happening to me. Yeah. And I say, like, what is this for? It opens up something different. There's a place of curiosity, and I don't have to rush. Right? I think there is something sometimes in the self-development and self-improvement where we always want to rush to like, what's the answer to this? Okay, that's good. That's what's happening. What's the 5 easy steps? Now I move on. Just to sit in the curiosity of, okay, so this has shown up. That's really interesting. I wonder what this is for. And sometimes we're in the middle of the story. Like we have to really remember, we're often thinking like, I want to know why. And we assume that we've sort of like figured out the whole thing, but usually we're asking that question from the middle of the story. And there's a place there, if we can sit in the curiosity, where the unfolding will occur. the unfolding will occur.
Yeah. And I agree. I don't think why is your best question, right?
No.
Like that can really get you stumped up. You know, like there's some big power, whatever, it's out there. Why is this happening? And rather to identify the emotion that's coming, right?
Yes.
What is the emotion what is this making me feel? How, you know, and there's a feeling coming up. What is this? And that's a big key piece. And, you know, because we all have a child in us, right? And so we know, and I think we touched on this the last time, that acknowledging the feeling is, whew, you know, if you're doing that for a little person, do it for yourself. Acknowledge the feeling. If you do nothing more than acknowledge the feeling, you are like 80% of the way there. Right?
Yep.
I mean,
Exactly. Name it to tame it.
Name it. Oh, I like that.
Right? Yeah, that's not
I've
me.
not heard
That's
that before.
Neil. I won't take that. But, that's what he says, right? And so I believe that that's true, right? The minute that I acknowledge and can speak to what is happening, I am sad, I am angry. That helps, right? To settle in. There's no longer the resistance. Often we're afraid of our emotions because we're resisting them. So I often talk about with clients, like they're treating it like trying to get a cat in a bathtub. You know, imagine like their claws are out, right? Like I don't want to feel the sadness. And so we make it so much bigger. And then when we just go, I am sad, we just kind of like fall into it.
Yes.
Right. And it passes. Right. But otherwise, what we're doing is we're keeping that on hold for a very, very long time.
Very good.
There was something else you were saying too about the why. And I think when we ask the why takes us to the cognitive mind, which is a recording of all of our past experiences. It doesn't take us. It's the narrative. It's the conditioned mind. It doesn't actually take us anywhere other than the figuring space. Right.
Yes.
I think that's so important. Right?
Yes. And then you're on a loop, right? You can't get out of there.
Right.
It's just, and everything everything's based on your past.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I know Susan probably has more to say, but I also know we have a question up. So, that was asked, could you touch on dealing with a partner who's not as experienced in self-healing, who brings their stuff to the table with little coaching or therapy on reading, or to help them grow and learn? So I think that there's a couple parts to this. So one part is, how would we deal with a partner who is not as experienced in self-healing?
And can I start?
Yeah.
And what's the person's name? I guess we don't have to. Okay. Hi, thanks for the question, first of all. That's a perfect question, what you've just outlined. I want to say thank you, because Byron Katie, who Colette talked about in her journey of the work, she poses 3 questions always. There's God's work, there's the other's work, and then there's your work. And God's work is none of your business. The other's work is none of your business. And your work is your business. And your only work is to love yourself. And if we go back to what I was saying earlier, that everything is a reflection, it is only being able to interact with the other in a way that is going to show or set the example, and doing your own healing and dealing with the feelings that are coming up within you in the moment of what you feel with the fact he's not as self-evolved as you may be. Because even in the recognition that's a judgment that we would hold in that experience towards the other. We're judging that we're somehow better than. And I think it was I watched a program recently with a fellow by the name of Matthias DeStefano on Gaia, which is an amazing series. If you get a chance to watch it, called Initiation. And he gave the analogy of, imagine that if you're parenting a child, a 4-year-old, they're at a different level of understanding. So you're not saying, hey, get it. What the hell? Or they're just learning to walk. Why aren't you walking already? Get your ass up there and start running. Come on. I'm not waiting around for you. You would never do that. You would hold with compassion, and you'd guide them along, and you would recognize, you can see it visually, that this little baby, this little person, they just don't have the capacity. That's the same for someone who is on a path of enlightenment. And what I would say further to that is the fact that you have a resonance with this person, that there is an energetic resonance with the experience you're having with this individual. And what is that saying about you? not about him, because that's, again, reaching out to the projection. So take the mirror and turn it within and saying, what is this circumstance and this experience saying about me that I need to learn? And how can I show up to reflect differently to him on his journey, and also to enhance who I am on my journey?
I love that, Susan. I think that's so important. It really is. The minute that I go into judgment of the other person is not as enlightened as I am, I'm right. Like I've just, whatever, there's a piece there. Not only am I in separation, I am also in a place now where I am doing something to that person. Like there's, you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm judging that they're not doing it right, well, me judging they're not doing it right, I'm not doing it right. Like, this Byron Katie work. And I think that what I see often, and I was thinking about this prior to this call, is that people on the path of awakening often start to question their partnerships. And, often, I will say this, it's often women who are saying, like, who are just at a place of like, I can't get my man or, my partner. And I understand there's all types of relationships. I'm just talking about a heteronormative relationship right now. But often saying like, somehow I need to pull them through. And the whole thing here, Reed Eckhart totally has a whole section on this, by the way, in The Power of Now, about enlightened relationships, and especially about women enlightening maybe and waking up faster just because of their natural tendency to feel and be versus doing. The idea here that Susan was talking about is there's a resonance. So when I say somehow this person can't go as deep as me, this person somehow is not as evolved, the truth is that we do not stay with partners who don't have a similar resonance, either a vibrational match or a match on the level of intimacy and a level of depth that they're willing to go to. And the most important thing I can do if I want to change the vibration and what's showing up in the relationship, I need to do that work for me. So instead of the time I'm spending judging whether or not this person is their highest evolution of self, I need to be working on my highest evolution of self. And either that is going to create enough space and attraction that the whole relationship starts to vibrate at a higher level and that person makes that choice because there's now a space for them to do that, or the relationship will fall away, and that is also okay. But I won't know until I'm at the place where I've done my work. And I often say to people when they're like, should I leave or should I stay in a relationship? Become the highest version of yourself. As long as it's safe, as long as you're not in an abusive relationship, become the highest version of you that you can be. And the relationship will either fall away or it will improve. But if I don't do that work, I'm being offered a gift. That agitation, the thing I'm bumping up against is really an opportunity for me to do some more work. And if I don't do that work in this relationship, it will show up in the next and the next and the next. Whether it's a romantic relationship, children's parents, whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, Susan, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say what I noticed in this, because I'm going through this similar experience. You can only be in a relationship to the level that you can go.
Yep.
That's the reality. If you would have asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have had maybe a different storyline for you or a different narrative. Mm-hmm. But I realized, for those that know me, I left a relationship in July last year, and I had a whole narrative around that, what Christina's saying, it couldn't go as deep as I could go, yada, yada, the whole storyline narrative. But the honest part is I could not go there. Mm-hmm. It was me that couldn't show up. And don't get me wrong, there was a resonance match that we had a similar resonance to how far we could go, because that's what the energetic match was. Yeah. And the journey is with self, as I keep saying. The other's only a reflection of self.
So here's a good question then, and this was posed to me earlier this week. So if the journey is really with self, why even have romantic relationships? Like, I mean, yes, we have relationships with our kids and our parents and those kind of, like, we need to have those relationships, but why would I choose to be in relationship if ultimately the relationship that is going to provide me the most ground and sustenance is the one with myself? Like,
Because you
this
grow-
is making you giggle.
It is, because it's
Right.
like, oh yeah, I would just hang out with myself and just be right all the time.
Yes.
You know, I really, if I could add that, and probably we'll speak to this a little bit too, but I can remember for a long time not, so in relationship, and I'm talking about my romantic relationship with my husband, as I was growing and I was experiencing and really on my own journey, conversations would come up and I would hesitate to share my experience. I would not be forthright completely.
Mm-hmm.
And that took, and I think maybe because I was on unsteady ground, I was discovering, I wasn't really sure, you know, the amateur, you know, I wasn't knowing until I'd had enough experience. But
Mm-hmm.
what was really powerful was when I showed up, as opposed to, so you're in conversation at the dining room table, that person brings an issue forth. It is not my job to fix. It is not my job to figure out their answers for them. It is my job to honor me. If there's something that's coming up for me, I get to share that part, or I could share a perspective. But it has really served me to know and understand that we actually we have everything we need. And the person sitting across from me also has what they need for where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm triggered thinking they're not quite as, you know, I get to share what I feel. I could share what I know. I could give my perspective. If I'm afraid that won't be welcomed, that's another aspect. But it doesn't make it less true, right? Whatever my experience is. So rather than it being about the other person is my point, that it's really what's coming up in me that I'm feeling, you know, oh, they're just not seeing it the way I'm seeing it. They're so, you know, in their fix-it energy, whatever energy they might be in that isn't as highly evolved or some such thing. It's not that. It's just be authentic, because that's your moment. That's your moment to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm thinking. Here's what I've been contemplating, you know, and to inquire and be curious rather than, well, you're not doing it right. You know, how is that helpful? That's not what we would do. Well, maybe it is for some people, but when I'm thinking, you're having the analogy of children, that's not what we do for children, right? That's what Susan is saying. It's that we go, well, let's get curious. Let's get curious about that. And here's how I've handled it, or how I'd like to handle it. And I'm not there yet, right? And for a long time, because at the very beginning of that spiritual journey around starting to work with the angels, you know, I can remember Doug was like, oh, he woo woo and all the things, and I would just go, yeah, I guess that's what's happening. I don't know, and I just didn't hang on to it, because it does seem really woo woo. It really does, because you can't touch, you can't feel. It's not. You know, sensory, action based,
Tangible.
right? It's very ethereal, and in your feeling, seeing, you know, it's different senses. And so I had to really take the steps to accept myself on this journey. And that was the key to other people accepting me on the journey, right? I wasn't waiting to be accepted by the other. And that's what changed.
And I love what you said about being curious. And then also when we're with another and recognizing from their lens, to recognize that they could see us that way. But in you know, the masculine energy, I just want to talk about that. You're saying with Doug initially how things were, and I know in my own experience, they have no framework to understand. They're used to action orientation, things in a tangible way, going from A to B to C to D. Nice squared off. And what we're doing in this whole metaphysical realm and seeing things from beyond on the known field, the rational field, into the transrational, it is. And even my own intellect, I struggle with it when that happens. Right?
And I also want to say, so So we're different energies, right? Like, you know, he's a grounded, red, action, task-based person. I need that. Like, I need that. I am different. I'm the dreamer. I'm the, you know, the spiritual one that I see different things.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I am so blessed and honored and grateful because guess who puts my plans into action?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And like, if we were both like me,
Mhm.
I don't think anything would get done.
It's like, it reminds me of the tree, right? The tree requires the roots and the tree requires the branches, right? Roots and wings. And I think that sometimes what happens is we get into this place of like, well, it's better to be in the wings place, right? Right. Or it's better to be in the roots place.
Yeah.
And actually it's a synergy that happens. And
it is.
you know, I think this piece around why be in relationship, which I think is so important, is, as I was discussing with my partner today, was the idea that I believe when two people who are doing their best to be their whole healthiest versions of themselves comes together, there's a synergy that's created, right? Where I'm more able to access myself and the divine, where I can experience something that is so amazingly loving. And so what happens if that relationship is sometimes a little bit lopsided? I think that always happens. And, you know, again, the friction that's created in the relationship is so integral for our growth. But I think about it this way in terms of like, it's like, I think about if I've mastered the ability to have my own wellspring. Okay. So I've got my own well, and I know now that when something comes up in a relation, in my interactions with other people, or my own self is triggered, I can go to this well and I can love myself. And then I can come back to it. If a thirsty traveler was to show up and be like, I am so thirsty, I am going to provide that thirsty traveler with water, because that is the most loving thing that I can do for a time. Not to like, I'm not going to be providing water to that traveler from my well forever, because at some point I would get to a place of saying, hey, you know, I have some ideas on how you might be able to dig your own well, right? And tap into the same aquifer, right? Of all being, of all love.
Great.
Yeah.
So what I think, like, I don't know why this water analogy really works for me, but
Good one.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think
it's
about
really
this
good.
underground aquifer, this place of love and being and presence, which we can all access. And so maybe one of us has figured out how to tap into that first. Then it's okay to say, hey, here's how to do that. But I think often what happens is that some of us are actually really committed to being the well owner and being the person that people come to for water. There's like, that's the codependency. People really enjoy, there's some value they get out of somehow being that, versus saying, hey, like, I'm here, I have water, I would love to show you also, right, how you can do this for yourself. Or are you interested, right? We extend an invitation. And we just keep loving ourselves through that. So we don't go and fix, right? We don't run to them. We don't grab the water pails and we run to them, right? This is really about doing that, because when both people can both tap into that, like two people who are well hydrated, to you keep using this analogy,
I love it.
right?
Yeah.
How wonderful is that?
Yeah.
Right?
And further to, can you hear, I got one bar on here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So when I'm thinking of it in terms of spheres, so you're one being, yourself, Christina, let's say, and then your partner is the other being. And when you come together, in between the center, when you bring two circles together, it's called the viscous piscis.
Mm-hmm.
You draw the two circles, and in the middle is where the circles overlap. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That individuals coming
after
together.
viscous picus, which I couldn't. So say that again. The overlapping part.
The viscous piscis.
Okay.
The viscous piscis, I think it's, I might not be saying it right, but the viscous piscis is the overlap.
Okay.
And with that, that's where the two individual energies come together, where the amplitude of that can actually enhance both experiences. That's why we come together with another, is because the opportunity to evolve even to a higher vibration another.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's so powerful.
Right. So that overlap really raises the vibration. And again, you're cutting out a little bit. So I'm getting this feeling, and Coral really says that you make sense here, Susan. So she's getting at what you're saying.
Good.
And I do believe it's synergy, right? Like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
100%.
Yeah. And just to bring in that for me, and I'm wondering if we have answered Janice's question.
Not quite. So we'll
wholly.
come back to that.
Yeah, because again, just knowing that we have these different aspects of ourselves, body, mind, spirit, or human spirit, soul, that we, when I'm in one of those situations where I'm having a conversation and maybe it's a little uncomfortable, or I'm having a judgment about it, or I wish it was going different, or I wish they'd see it my way, or whatever, I take a moment to pause and ask for some preparation. Right. So that sets the intention. You can look at that any way you want to. I would be like, okay, so angels, prepare me and help me to speak my truth in a way that it can be heard. Right. And, we're just talking about really respectful communication, and we don't always feel patient enough for that. For sure. I haven't. And, but it is super, super helpful. So I just want to go like that next step further, that if there is some way for me to be helpful here, guide me. What is it? Right? Use my words, use me. If there is some way that I can be of benefit in this situation.
I love that. And I think what's so important here is that there's that balance. I am a human being, and I also have my divine nature. So there is a place where I can, continue my best practices in terms of my spiritual nature, and to be and to love and to pull all these pieces in. And at the same time, there's actual skills that are important, so that once I've sat with something, that once I have really pulled away the layers to the truth of what's actually going on, not, I'm upset because of this, right? Like I'm upset because you left the cup beside the sink instead of washing it, where I can actually get to a place of going, my vulnerability here is that, in that moment when I've asked you to do that before, I don't feel seen. And this is about my childhood stuff. And this is what's coming up for me right now, right? Is really this piece here. I need to also have the skill to have that conversation. Once I've distilled what's actually happening and been able to sit in the truth. And I think that's the most important thing. I've also just been reading Awake and Relating, and by Lynn Marie Lumiere, and I will post some of these book recommendations. And she said, don't commit to a relationship, commit to the truth. And I find that so powerful, because that's exactly it. Like, what is actually true in this moment? And if I ask my partner just to not do that cup thing anymore, I am never going to get to this part of me, which is still needs to be healed, that wants to be seen. What is so important is the idea, though, is that there is some skill in how to have that conversation, right? Yeah. So I think there's a balance between learning how to be in relationship as a human, and also knowing how to access these other parts of self-love.
So how can I ask you, Christina, are you afraid right before you're saying that vulnerable thing? How do you handle that?
Yeah, often. Right? Most of us fear that level of vulnerability and that level of intimacy, because that's what intimacy is allowing oneself to be seen completely and being vulnerable in that. Yeah. If any of us have had a history in our growing up where when in our truth have either not been seen or heard, or been neglected for whatever reason, right? Maybe our parents were too busy and self-focused on something else. The idea of being able to express oneself at the depth of who they are and have that held, to have that seen, to not be judged for it, that is really terrifying. And so in those moments, because they still come up, even though I'm committed to that truthful process, I sit with myself for a while first before I have that communication. So I love that part of me, right? Like I assure that part of me that I am there for her no matter what, that she is okay, right? And yeah, I really be with that and know that the relationship that I want, the relationship I want with anybody is going to be built on truth. And so that helps me. Just taking that step undoes. If I stay stuck in that old pattern, and if I choose not to communicate that, I only reinforce the old pattern.
Yeah.
And what you said, Christina, about one thing that's, we're never really upset for the reason
We're never really upset for the reason we think we are.
I love
First
that.
American, right?
It is, and so it's an opportunity, it's an upset or a setup, is you hear that analogy often, for us to go deeper and to look and go deeper to see what hasn't been met. And further to what you said, Christina, about those of us, and of course there's a lot of information on attachment theory of why people show up the way they do as adults in adult relationships, because of their proximity or love, expecting people to meet your needs. For many of us, that didn't occur. So we either become self-resilient. We don't. This is unconscious, of course, or subconscious. We don't believe that people are going to be there. So to be vulnerable with somebody and claim out loud that, okay, I'm really.
So you said claim out loud, and then we lost you.
Okay.
So I know what Susan is touching on here. She's touching on a bit of attachment theory, which I think is a really important thing for us to discuss. We may not have a ton of time to do that today, and that's probably like another call or more in depth. But the idea here is that when we did not receive the kind of love and care and attention that on a consistent basis from our parents, meaning that they were accessible, they were responsive to our needs, they were emotionally engaged and empathetic. So we felt safe, we felt seen, and we felt soothed and heard, and we felt important, and people delight in our experience and were there to support us and pick us up when we fell. That creates a secure attachment, right? When we always know we have a safe harbor, we have someone to go to, and we feel good about that. And that really gives us an opportunity to take bigger steps out into the world, because we know there's always going to be someone there for us. But most of us have had either inconsistent parenting. If had inconsistent parenting, we end up with, we end up being more anxiously attached. So we don't know if we can rely on that. So we tend to always like, are you there? Can we, like, do you love me? Like, am I okay? We tend to think there's something wrong with us. And so we're always kind of checking in. We need lots of reassurance, right? In our adult relationships, usually that looks like we're going to be more pokey and more attacky, because we're just so anxious about what may or may not happen. We're always trying to reach out for the other person. If we've had parents that were more cold and aloof, who didn't have a lot of emotional experience of their own, or didn't really demonstrate that kind of love, more businessy or militant, we tend to become more avoidant, which means we tend to shut down. We've learned to mute our feelings, and we have a richer internal world. So when something happens in relationship, we tend to shut down. We should tend to go into our cave. We tend to withdraw in some way. And so that's what Susan
I know that one well.
Yes?
Yeah, I know that one well. Yeah, 100%. That's my style, is avoidant. That if people lean in, I lean out.
Okay.
What? You're fine, leaning in, needy. And that, because again, because the needs weren't met in the fundamental aspects.
Right.
And for each of us, that's the time. So when those things come up, is to learn that aspects about self. So back to the question I asked, I think before I had to go and come on. Right. The question, how do I relate to self?
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes incumbent upon each of us to become our own parents and reparent those aspects where we didn't get our needs met. And it's never, now at this stage, it isn't going to come from the other, but as I think it was Colette that said, we all have that inner child, that little child lives within us. And I believe, it just came into my awareness through meditation, there is a divine child in every one of us that knows our purpose and our mission and why we are here. And that is the core line to Christ consciousness of the journey of the soul's experience. And then when we can live in balance of that, through the masculine and feminine that is also within us, our masculine energy of the doing and the feminine energy of the being and the feeling, look out, because that's when the magic really starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come in alignment with that divine child who's just yearning to be heard, as you said, to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. That's it. We all want that. That's what we all have in common. Everybody on this call, all of humanity. We just want to be seen and heard. And every time we speak, we just want to be heard. That's it. We want to be seen for who we are.
And I think, Susan, like right now, because I am really feeling that we're being called to this place where we have this space to, like, this real opportunity in the not doing, right? Because I think that we get so distracted and so busy that we don't often take the moments and the time to turn towards ourselves, turn towards our little self or our divine child. We don't often take that time. And suddenly, for me, with things being reduced in my calendar, I have this wonderful opportunity to practice this in this moment. And whether that's with my relationship with myself, something just is coming up within me, whether that's my relationship, that's something's happening within my relationship with someone else that's being triggered, all of this is such an incredible opportunity. If we did not have this pause, how many of us would just keep going? And what I often use the analogy with my clients is that when there's something going on inside of me, there's an agitation, what I often do is that I want to just say, not now. I don't have time for you now, right? And I never really get to it. But the analogy is that I think about it as like dragging a screaming child through the supermarket, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to get my groceries. I want to do my things. I don't have time. But as I drag that screaming child through the supermarket, what happens is that does not bode well for any of us, right? Like that doesn't get any better. And what I know is if I can pause in that moment, if I was to talk to that child and say, oh, wow, honey, like you're having a tough time, right? Like I'm here. What is it that you need right now? I know that I could be able to calm that down and then go back to my doing if that was what was called for.
100%. And it's funny because even right now, let's just put this into perspective on what's happening right now. Not being seen, not being heard in my own little girl's experience. Like how prophetic, like for me to look at that and I can feel angst going on in the inner child, just so you know.
Right.
But it's lovely because it's not about any of this. It's not about, and actually what's wonderful for me right now, because instead of being to have my game on with what people are seeing me or hearing me with my voice, I get to just experience the energy. Oh my God, a wider perspective in this moment.
Beautiful.
By the grace of God, looked like I thought it was an upset. It's a freaking setup for me to go a little deeper. And not having to be stuck in the illusion of what things look like or sound like.
Yeah. Wow.
What a demonstration by the divine right here.
Yes. Right. Wow. Susan, that is powerful. It's a powerful reframe because you're right. Like how many opportunities would there have been to take that somewhere else? Right. And through you resourcing into being present, keep breathing, right? Loving yourself through that. You can see a bigger perspective. A bigger perspective opens up. When you if you were to stick in victim about how the technology was working or wasn't working for you today.
Yeah.
That would have been a very
I
different.
did, like, this is a gift, even that the conversation even went here. What a gift this just turned out to be for me. I cannot, oh my gosh, a wider perspective. I just got another layer, another perspective that I would not have been able to see had this did not go down this way. And I could have, exactly what you said, I could have been stuck in victim and saying, oh my God, I can't, technology, it's not working. I went there for a second, but I'm wise enough that I've done my work that I don't stay there very long.
Yeah.
I'm able to move past it quite quickly. But you wouldn't believe the energy I'm feeling in this experience. It's the actual physical sensation of the collective energy that I get to just be sitting in the background in observation. Holy moly.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm just noticing the time and that we're needing to wrap up here soon. Like every time we have these wonderful conversations, we always come to the point of like, there was like 20,000 things left to say.
Mm.
Yeah.
What?
Hi, babe.
Hi.
What did I do? I wanted to say something in my little chat. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
You know, I love that that immediate moment came to say, how is this for me? And Susan just went for it. I love
Yes.
that. Way to go, Susan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is beautiful.
So is there something you would
Yeah.
like to say tonight to sign off, Colette? There's something that
Oh, well, I always seem to feel after I probably overshared. So, you know what? I hope that anything that was shared was just right for everybody.
no. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Was it right for you? Because
Yeah, it's really good.
because those other people, right? This is about
Yeah.
you. And there was like, and
Yeah.
so are you, can you be okay in this moment with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just feel so honored to have these conversations. Thank you, Christina. And thank you, Susan. And, you know, and for inviting me along to this. And I always learn so much and take a lot away from this. So yeah. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who's
Thank you.
participated. This is really beautiful.
Here's what I know is that I am mindful of the stories that I share because I share them because they're hopefully going to support other people, but it's where we find our commonality, right? Like there are other people who like, if I don't share any of my humanness, then there is no commonality. There's nothing for people to be like, oh, okay. Right. And so that's what I appreciate so much about you, Colette, is your willingness. Because we're all just human. We're all just figuring this out together.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
true. It is true. And, you know, I have to say that, you know, I often say to my husband, so you just so you know, you're probably going to come up a bit in my sessions because my learning is what I have to offer. And each one of us, you know, we always, I want to say this, like, trust that the person in front of you is the right person. And that what you have to offer them, if it's your, you know, your partner who isn't quite on the same journey or it feels like it, it's okay. You're in the right place at the right time. There isn't a mistake, right? So we are sharing who we are and what we've come through.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Susan, is there something you want to add?
Colette.
Thank you,
Exactly.
Susan.
Further, yeah. Thank you, Colette, and both of you for first of all holding space with this technology glitch, and you guys went through it so smoothly. So I appreciate that to the depth of my core. And I think whatever's happening in the moment is meant to happen. I'm really moving into that space. However, so when we say, you know, you said, Colette, have you overshared? It was perfect because that's what you did. That's what in my perception, it was absolutely perfect. And because I guarantee you, it touched so many people to a level that they may not have achieved without you sharing to that level. So it was magnificent.
Beautiful.
And I'm just honored that we get to hold space as a collective, and all the people on the call, I can feel the energy of the people and this resonance that we created with this group. Thank you. I want to say to all the participants on the call, including you guys, thank you.
Yeah.
And also for your patience and me dealing with the voice and the not seeing, but it was supposed to play out that way. So I was able to get a deeper depth here. And I can feel your energies, and thank you so much for just showing up and being to hold space so this depth of conversation could have for all the things that each of us are facing in our own way, in our own perspectives, through the lens of this human experience. And everybody that showed up here with their energy created an opportunity for us to be the conduit or the container of having a conversation that is impacting us, or all of us, in our own way. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Just love. Honestly, right now, I feel expandedness of love for every single person. The world, of course, but here, this group is amazing. Thank you.
It is so lovely. And you know, Colette and Susan, you are just my sisters, my divine sisters. And I just appreciate doing this work with you. You know, we're called this was just called in, right? Like these people showed, like, I don't know how to explain this. You know, 2 months ago, this wasn't something that we planned.
No, no.
So this
No.
is something that has evolved, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to again say to all of you, like, thank you so much for creating this. You created this within the field for all of us
Yeah.
to really show up and offer this from our hearts. And we
Yeah.
want to again be responsive. So you know, if you have other topics, I think there's so many much more we could even say about relationships and such, but please, you know, send me your information. If you want to send me your questions, you can do that to info@repiphany.com. I will post this. You can find this posted on the Facebook page, Repiphany Counseling, or Conversations with Christina is a YouTube channel. So all of those places. So if you need to access us, we want to be of service. So please reach out. And thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you everyone for participating. And Susan, thank you for your firsthand demonstration. Amazing, grace. Amazing grace. So good.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
we're gonna
you.
sign off. Have a
All
good
right,
night,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night.
Love you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.